Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're really delighted that you're interested in hearing more about the Grierson DocLab training program. I'm Sylvia Bednars. I'm the MD of the Grierson Trust. And for those who aren't familiar with us, the Grierson Trust exists to champion and celebrate the very best in documentary. We run the British Documentary Awards, which takes place every year in November. We also run several training programs with the support of various different industry partners. Some of the training programs are for brand new talent looking to kind of break into the documentary space. And some programs are more tailored for people who already have experience in the documentary industry, where we can provide specific training and open doors to help them succeed in a documentary specialism. So we're really thrilled to be working with Netflix on this new program, which is for people who are already working in docs or factual TV, but they're looking to specialize in documentary development. Just a bit of housekeeping. Please keep your video off, mute your mic, post questions in the chat. Please just post questions throughout and we can refer back to them. We'll be using Mentee, which is essentially a poll where questions will be asked and you'll be able to answer exactly where you are in the country, what your experience is, just so we can get a sense of who's in the Zoom room. And it's going to be recorded and we'll publish this afterwards so you can revisit it if you need to or share it with your pals. And closed captions are available. So I'm going to hand you over to Yen, who's hosting today's webinar. You are also going to be hearing from a couple of other people. So you're hearing from the program's lead trainer, Debbie Lowe, and Netflix's Nelesh Dhand. All the best with your applications. I can't wait to meet many of you soon.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. We're delighted that we've got such a great showing and interest in the scheme. As Sylvia says, my name is Yen Yao. I'm the Director of Training Programs for the Grierson Trust. And I basically look after a series of different training programs. We have a new entrant program, and then over the last few years, we've developed specialisms. And today's talk and webinar is to introduce everybody to our newest addition to the suite of training programs. But before we go into that, what I want to do is, as Sylvia says, ask some questions of everybody who's joining us this evening. Basically, it gives us a chance to just figure out who's applying, who's interested, who wants to find out more information. The polling that we will do and the answers that you give us are anonymous. And it just really is helpful for us as we're going through the process about finding out who's applying basically. So what you need to do, as per the slide before, you need to go to in your browser, so however you may be accessing it. The website is mentee.com, and if Hannah will put that in the chat for us, if possible, that'd be great. And then at the top of the screen, you will find that there's a code. So that's what you want to do. I am going to just put that on the screen now so you can see what we're asking. So just share that for a moment. There's quite a lot happening here. Let's have a look. Present. So first question that I'd like everybody to address is where are you from? Where are you based? Grierson Trust, all our training programs are national. We try with every cohort that we work with to be geographically diverse. So inevitably we do skew towards London, but we are seeking also people from other areas of the country and the nations as well, and the regions. And the beauty of this training program is that it's hybrid, so you will be dialing in remotely and then we bring you together, and it's going to be hosted at Netflix's offices around the corner from Oxford Street. So that's what we'll be doing. So that's the first thing. I'll give it a few minutes. We've got some other people joining us. So for those who've just joined us, if you go to the chat, welcome first of all. If you go to the chat, you'll see that there's a website that we would like you to go to. It's anonymous. What we're looking for is asking a series of questions just to find out who's applying and interests, etc. So first question that we are asking is, where are you based? So we've had 36 people answering that question, so that's great. For expediency, I'm just going to move this along and we'll put the code periodically refresh that because it'll be good to know who's applying. Next question, just about where are you based? Sorry, what's your current work status? So we know that industry is facing some challenges at the moment, but what is your circumstance? Welcome for those who have just joined us. If you can go to our chat, you'll see, Hannah, can you just refresh the chat with the details of the mentee? What we're doing is just doing some anonymous polling just to find out who's in the call with us this evening to find out your backgrounds and just some simple questions. First question is about where you're based. This one's next one we're now looking at is about your current work status. So that's great. I'm going to move it on. So this one is about our diversity. In common with all our training programs, we're looking to support those who are underrepresented in the industry. Now, diversity is something that you will get a chance to describe in your own words in the application, but that could be geographical, it could be socio-economic. With our new entrance scheme this year, we've got a focus on working class backgrounds, for instance. Could be a return to industry, could be from a neurodiverse, you are neurodiverse. So how would you describe your diversity if you were going to be applying? As I said, this is anonymous, no right or wrong answer, just helps us basically. Thank you, everybody. This is much appreciated that you're sharing this with us. It's really, really helpful. It's brilliant that we've got such a range of people here. Excellent. Thank you. And just to say, for those who have just joined us, if you go into the chat, this is just some anonymous polling that we're doing just to find out who is interested in applying to the scheme and just a series of questions that we're asking. So this is brilliant. Thank you. So we'll just move on and you can add, for those who are late, the code is in the chat. You can still add that to you. Excellent. And then lastly, for this section, what is it that excites you about working development? Tell us in a few words. This isn't an essay, it's not a test. Well, what brings you here? What brings you to this part of the industry in terms of your work to date, I suppose? think we'll close this for now, but thank you very much. This is really, really helpful. Oops. And then what we'll do now, so thank you very much, that's brilliant. I'm going to stop the screen and we're going to now start the webinar itself. And there's a couple of questions that we'll poll again at the end, but that's brilliant. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to do this. So just a bit of background about the Grierson Trust for those of you who might not have heard of our training program, the work that we do. So Grierson have been running training programs since 2012. We've got a long track record, very successful. Supporting people, young people initially aged 18 to 25 into the industry. And then over the last few years, as I said, so first working with Netflix, working with people who are pivoting from different careers when they were in production, working in production management, done one in editing. Last year, we worked with Amazon, delivering a training program for archive producers. And then this year, we're delighted that we've been able to launch this new one with Netflix and championed by Dhand, who's joining us. And really, the session is about highlighting to the audience about whom we would like and who should be applying, explaining about who the scheme is focused at. We'll provide a summary, about what the scheme will entail, and that really follows a format that we is successful, well tested because of the track record that we've got to date. And then we'll give you some tips about what we think will make an application basically stand out. Just in terms of a bit about my background, I've been working with the Trust for a number of years now in various guises, and my role with any of the training programs is about supporting you if you get on to help you network, introduce you to contacts, supporting your continuous professional development. Myself and also through the Trust, we have a very good little black book. And really what we're here to do is support those who are facing multiple barriers, career progression, whatever that may look like, what we can do to support you really. So the beauty of the programs is that we work only in small cohorts. There are only 8 spots available, and through that process of working with such a small cohort, we get to know you, you get to know us, and through that process we are able to offer bespoke support to you, and that support is ongoing. So when you finish the formal part of the training, you've gone off to undertake the placement, you have your mentoring relationship with an industry professional, get invited to networking events, you're more than welcome to continue that relationship with us. And we still have people who are still reaching out to us over 10 years since they've been on the scheme. And because now we have been established for so long, we have a very lively and very committed alumni group that help each other. So if there's questions, it's always good to ask your peers and people who have been through the process of going through our different schemes, but also with that all that industry experience that they have. The hive mind is really, really powerful, and I think that's one of the beauty of the schemes, basically. So that's a little bit about what we do and what I do. I like to now hand over and ask Dhand from Netflix and then Debbie Lowe to to introduce yourself. So Nell, can I hand over to you first of all? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for joining. My name's Nell. I'm a commissioning editor at Netflix, where I've been working for the last 3 years. I work in the documentary series team, so I work across a range of different genres, everything from natural history, true crime, contemporary history, pop culture. We have a wide range of documentaries, so you get to sort of make all different kind of things. And yeah, before that, I used to be the creative director of a company called Pulse Films. I ran the documentary department there, where I was responsible for both developing and delivering a slate of new documentaries, and then obviously making those shows for places like Netflix and other streamers and UK broadcasters like BBC and Channel 4. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Nell. And Debbie. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, done that now. Yeah, really nice to see you all. Really looking forward to hosting this a bit later on in the year. So hopefully we can share information with you and encourage you to apply, and really looking forward to that a bit later. So my name's Debbie Lowe, and I'm currently a senior development exec at BBC Studios, where I am developing documentaries and limited series for the US market. I've been working in documentary development and production for 12 years. It was my third career. So I saw some of you on the mentee thing say that this is, your hopeful second career. Well, feel pleased that it's actually my third one. So it's totally realistic to make transitions. And I've found that having a different background has been very helpful. So my first career was actually in the city. And then I had a very strong reaction to that and became a sailor for 5 years. And I was 32 by the time I got into docs and production. So quite late on in my career. And I've spent the last 12 years doing a mixture of development and production. Some people you'll see purely work in development, some people purely work in production, and some people are hybrid. I'm a bit of a hybrid. I did a bit of dabbling in feature films first, so I became a script reader for quite a few years, and then I also made a low budget horror movie in Muswell Hill. So please don't judge me on it if you find it on IMDb, but it was pretty good training. So I've been involved in all levels of development. So I've led development teams as a head of development. I've been a development consultant on different projects. I've worked embedded in development teams. I've worked on documentaries and documentary series, branded content, digital series, and I've worked on projects which are commissioned but also independently financed. So quite hopefully a broad range of experience to bring to bear to share with you all the different facets and journeys you can go on in development. And I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you.
That's great, Debbie. That was really, really handy. Now, do you want to just expand a bit more about how you got into the industry and what your career path has been like? Because I think, very useful to understand that what the first job that you do does not dictate what you do for the rest of your life. And, the zigzagging of certainly our sector, there's no one, it's not linear. So, can you just share with everybody your career path to date?
Yeah, completely. I mean, there is definitely no clear path in television. People take all different kinds of routes. For me, I was always really obsessed with documentaries, like growing up. So like the age of 14, 15, I used to watch a lot of documentaries, like a kind of like an unhealthy amount of documentaries, I would say. But I kind of hadn't put two together and thought that can be your career. That could be what I do for my, for a job, I guess. But I did study film at university just because it was a passion of mine. It was in European film, and still hadn't pieced together that that's something you can do for a career. It was all theoretical. And it was just a stroke of luck, really. I saw a advert at the university I was at with the BBC because I was at Manchester Uni and we were next to the BBC at that time. And there was an advert that was looking for TV ideas, and it was more factual entertainment ideas, formats. And I just thought, oh, that looks fun. And I just came up with a bunch of ideas, submitted them, and was lucky enough to go through this scheme. And the BBC took me through, and I got exposure to what a development team is and what this whole new industry is like. And then at the end of that sort of competition, they gave me a work experience. And then for 4 weeks, I was working in a development team, and again, a comedy entertainment development team. So it was like quiz shows and panel shows. Wasn't at all my passion, but I loved what I was doing. It was like incredible. I was like, God, these people are so creative and the jobs are so fun, and they're creating things. They're like, ideating, they're just making things happen. And then that turned into a paid thing. And I was like, oh my God, I'm getting paid to do this? Is this what's happening with my life now? But anyway, to sort of like go forward from there, I loved development from the moment I was in it, and I knew that was something that I could do and make a career out of. But I was also very aware of the fact that I wanted a production experience. So I guess over the sort of years after that, I would flip-flop between development and production. So I developed something, we would go into production, I would go and work on that show, and then go back into development. And I zigzagged between different production companies for a number of years. And was always kind of looking for my way into documentaries. Because, like I say, that was what I really wanted to do. I loved what I was doing. I used to make shows like Dragon's Den and lots of other stuff, some great shows. But I knew that was where I wanted to be. And then I eventually got myself into a docs company under the guise of coming in to expand what they do and fact end, but really I knew I was like, yeah, I'll say I'm going to do that, but actually I want to do this, and help them get their first feature documentary commissioned with an idea of mine, and then it sort of went from there really. But I think the things that I realised very early on in my career about development that's kind of unique is, I mean, obviously it's an incredible space, so it's an incredible creative space to be in, and you have a hand in shaping culture, which is, you can't say that for many things really. It's an incredible privilege to be a part of that. But the things in terms of your career that I realised development does, that production maybe necessarily doesn't do, or not in the same way, is it can really be rocket fuel for your career, because quite early on at a junior level, you are sitting with the MDs of the company, you're going into commissioner meetings sometimes. So sort of by osmosis, you have exposure to incredibly experienced people and minds, where sometimes on productions, you wouldn't be with those people for a long time. So there's a really incredible opportunity there if you can get in development. I also realized that you can really be the master of your destiny in development. It's a really hard industry to work in. It's incredibly unpredictable. You don't know sometimes where your next job's coming from. But the reality is, if you are bringing money into a company, if you're literally bringing money into a company, they will never let go of you, and neither will anyone else, and you'll be wanted by everybody. It's an incredibly powerful thing to latch onto in your career, and realize that it's a creative industry, it's an art form, it's also a business. And I think development gives you that 360 perspective on the industry and takes you out of being immersed in one project and kind of goes, this is big industry here with all these moving parts, and actually you can be a part of all of it. So that's what I've always loved about it. It gives you an incredible perspective on the industry. And so I always, when I'm mentoring younger people coming through, I always try to encourage them to try it. It's not for everyone. It's really hard. You have to have resilience. You have to be able to persevere. People tell you no 99% of the time, whether it's who you're working with, whether it's the commissioner you're pitching to. There's a lot of rejection, and it's really, really hard. Continually trying to create new things is not easy at all. And so I think this course, I think, is really for people that you don't have to be incredibly experienced in development, but I think it is helpful if you've had a taste of it, and that it's something you want to do, it's something you want to be a part of. Because I've experienced lots of people who dip into development and they try it and they can still be really good at it, but they quickly realize it's just not for them, and actually they much prefer to be on a production. So I think it's definitely something to bear in mind as you're thinking about this course.
That's really great, Nell. I was going to move on to you, so this is perfect. In terms of you talking about, the kind of people that should be applying. Do you want to focus in a bit more about, whom we're looking at? And really, the other question is, why is Netflix partners with the trust to create the scheme?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I'll start with the why is Netflix partnering with the Griersons? I mean, look, for me personally, I work for Netflix, and I'm also on the board of the Grierson. So this is incredibly close to my heart in three ways, really. From a Netflix perspective, from a Grierson perspective, and also from a development perspective, because I'm a huge passionate believer in development as a craft. And I think the reason we really focused in on this with the Griersons is that development can be overlooked a lot in this industry. I don't think it quite gets the love and the shine that lots of other jobs and lots of other departments get. Still to this day, you have some broadcasters and some, who don't even credit people who have developed shows. And I find that absolutely incredible, because you could like come onto a show for a day and do a job for like one singular day and you'll be credited, but you could have a hand in creating this thing. It wouldn't exist if it wasn't for you, and you might not still get credited. So I think it's incredibly overlooked. And especially when it is the lifeblood of this industry. Like, this industry revolves around creating new things and creating ideas, and it is the development teams that are tasked day in, day out with creating those ideas. And then the second part of it really is, beyond the value of it and it being overlooked, is the fact that it's such a wide-ranging skill set you need in development. And you don't have to be able to do everything. The development teams, for a reason, can be great at one thing, or you could have, a wide skill set, be great at lots of things. But there's a wide-ranging skill sets that go into it, and they're not often taught, and they're not directly the same as production. There is overlap and there are similarities, but I think there is a whole other layer of the craft and the skill of not just creating ideas, but creating undeniable ideas that will get picked up by broadcasters. So it's not creating ideas in a vacuum that are just good ideas, but it's being able to listen and hear and tune into the needs and wants of the people that you're talking with, and also tuning into what you uniquely do, and finding that middle ground where you've got something that is desirable and will be picked up. There's a whole wide-ranging bunch of skills that go into that, and they're not taught. And development is quite informal. It's like, I think probably a lot of all the bits of TV, the hiring process can be quite informal. It's quite hard to get into. I know I hear that a lot from people. It's like they want to get into development, they find it really hard. So this I think we felt good about bringing this together because it was overlooked, but also there's a really valuable set of skills that we can help nurture and teach people that don't often get taught, basically.
That's great. Thank you very much, Nell. Debbie, moving over to you and getting your input. No, we're in the beginning of the process, but to your mind, what can you share with the audience about what trainees can expect to learn on the training week, in person and also the hybrid? What sorts of themes and things that we've been discussing?
Am I unmuted? Yes, good. Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited. This is the first time that this program has been put together. So we're in a really privileged position because we can actually curate it to the market now and our skills and experience now. It's, as Nell said, it's a very live process development and it's ever changing. And so to have the opportunity to craft this program for you is a real privilege. And the thing is with development, it is multifaceted, multi-staged, and there is never one linear path. So it is, every project takes a totally different path, and you actually can't predict what path you're going to be going on with the project at the beginning of it. So there's so many different aspects and there's so many different ways that it can go. And my intention and hope is to be able to offer insight into as many of those as I can. As I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, that there will be a brief set to the trainees at the beginning of the week and at the beginning of the fortnight or the 2 weeks, where they will be asked to develop a documentary over the course of the period, and so that will be a running narrative throughout the fortnight that we return to. So everything that we address together and look at together will be looked at through the view of that idea, and so you can practically engage with the learning as we go. So there is a linear path to development, which is sort of happens with almost every idea, and then there's offshoots. So we'll be looking at how you generate ideas. So where do you find ideas? Where do you find ideas which are unique? How do you judge whether that idea is distinct? How can you make an assessment about whether it can work for today's landscape? How can you, how do you search? How do you scan? Because the weird thing about finding ideas, it's limitless, right? We could all go on to the internet tonight and come up with 100 ideas or no ideas. So how do you sort of make that assessment? So generating ideas, what makes a good idea and how do you judge? So then we'll move into the sort of early research and development phase. So once we've established it's a good idea, how do we move it forward? At that point, typically with an idea, you would do some research. You'd find out who are the stakeholders, what's the background, where did this story come from, who's involved, who might be able to speak, what sort of themes might come out of it. Has there been programs on it before? If so, what are they? What did they say? Are we able to say anything new? So you start to sort of interrogate it, really. There's a phrase which I say a lot when I'm talking to people about documentaries, which is what's the story about? And then what's the story really about? And then what's the story really about? And this is the sort of wonder of development that Nell was talking about earlier, which is that, documentaries have just got this extraordinary ability because they are stories and they take people on a journey, but they're also, interrogating our world and our society. And so it's not only has to be an extraordinary story, but it's also what is that telling us about how we're living and what we're doing. And so you've got sort of multiple things to be looking at with an idea and what it sort of speaks to thematically. So then speaking back to Nell's earlier point, again, at this point, typically I would ask myself the question of, can I sell this idea? If we manage to make this a project, is this sellable? Who would be interested? What's the pathway to sale? Is it realistic? Is it worth the investment? Because, an idea I think a lot about in development is an opportunity cost, because we've only got limited time and development could be limitless. So how do you judge what to spend more time on? And actually, at this point, it's important to interrogate if it's realistic. And if, even if it's a great story and even if it speaks to all the things we wanted to speak it to, does it meet the requirements of the market that we know? And do we think we'll be able to craft it in a way that delivers? So really important. So how do we judge that? So then if you decide that is a realistic proposition, you can start to think about how are we actually going to tell this story? Who or what do we need to tell this story? What is the access that we need? So access is a word we use, or probably it's the most used word in development. It's like who is going to help us tell this story and what? So are we going to hear from and what are we going to see on screen? I remember when I first got into development, one of the things that took me a long time to get my head around was that there's lots of good ideas and there's lots of good stories, but how you actually translate that into something on screen, what is actually going to be visible, takes time to sort of translate in your brain for some reason. Maybe less so now. Maybe we're all a bit more sophisticated, but certainly for me when I joined. So who will tell the story and what will tell the story? So you can start to flesh that out. And then you go on, what we call the access journey. So now you need to start trying to establish relationships with those people and those places that potentially have access to archive to tell a story. And that is a real skill because, you're approaching people who have oftentimes something very personal to tell or share, or something very important to them that they're holding. And, they may or may not want to share it. And there's a really important line to tread there about exploring the story and trying to get to know it better, building a relationship with those people, and explaining what it is you want to do, but not pressurizing people, giving them the space to understand what's available and what the opportunity is, but also allowing them to make that decision. And it's a really tricky, the access path is tricky and it's complicated. So we'll be looking at that in detail and all of the pitfalls and all of the problems and all of the things that I've learned in the time that I've done this job, which help. And I hope, have meant that the people that have worked with me have been comfortable with that access journey. So then, back to what will we see on screen? How are we going to tell this story? What kind of archive have you got? Are we going to interview? Are we going to film drama? Are we going to go to, somebody's wonderful archive that they've had hidden in their attic? So looking at how you tell the story. Then we go back to the story and think about, this is a big thing, correct me if I'm wrong now, for Netflix, quite rightly, you may have a wonderful story, but always with documentary, we need to think about what the ending of that story is. The viewers of documentaries have got so sophisticated, incredibly, they're demanding, quite rightly. These stories have to be extremely high quality. And so in order for that to substantiate, how do we conclude those documentaries? And so a substantial ending is good. So then we're going to look at so that now you've gone through all of that thinking and understanding and building, we start to actually break down the beats of the story. So how do we actually think about how that story is going to translate on screen? Where are the twists coming from? Where are the turns coming from? Where are the, where's the beats of the story? So we'll look at how we do that with the story. So then we move actually into creating materials. So what sort of materials do we create with development? The output for us is typically, a deck, which can be anything from 4 pages to 45 pages, depending on where you are in the development process. But a deck is, a visual stimulating document which uses imagery and text to explain your project to potential buyers. I'm a real passionate deck creator. I think it's the first time we're creating something for our potential buyers, and I want that deck to be as high production value as the series that we create. So we'll be looking at how we create decks to the very best of our ability, and what sort of tips and tricks, how we create sizzles. Sorry, yeah, am I okay to keep going? Round up. Sorry,
yeah, round up, please. Yeah, thank you.
It's not my fault, yeah, and it's development. It's too many facets. So there's also sizzles. So how do we create trailers and sizzle reels to sell? Pitching, what are the tricks of the trade? How do we prep? How do we pitch? And what does that look like? And then we'll look at what happens post-pitch. So do we go into funded developments, actually interrogating the story into series breakdown, attaching talent? How do we look at tone, style, form? And then really importantly and lastly, that transition into production. Development is not a silo operation. Development is integral to the production process. And so that handover to production is key. And so we'll be looking at that too. Sorry, Yen, again, it's development, not me.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you very much, Debbie. That was really helpful. So just a few things that I would add to what Nell and Debbie has said, that we've mentioned in the application process, the guidelines, you will get to develop an idea, and basically that is a vehicle through which is prism through which threads all the way through to help you understand the things that we're talking about. And we'll be bringing in, because we are the Grierson Trust and because we're working with Netflix, we'll be bringing in people at the top of their game to come in and share under Chatham House rules some of the stuff that they've had to tackle and the challenges, so that illustrates and helps you, if you haven't had that sort of contact before, to help you learn, because I think there's something to be you learn through other people's mistakes and how people would do things differently. So that's going to be very powerful. And then what else was I going to say? God, I can't remember now. I'm just gone blank. Okay, last question for Nell, and then we'll take questions. Nell, got lots of people in the room now, which is fantastic. In your opinion, what will make a strong candidate stand out? What would you be looking for?
I mean, it goes without saying, someone who's passionate about documentaries, I think, is definitely the first thing. You have to have a passion for it to get through how hard it is, and how difficult, like, the process of continually having to come up with ideas is. I think someone who watches a lot, and that doesn't have to be documentaries. I mean, obviously, passion documentaries, but then someone who watches broadly, who watches television, who watches films, who watches scripted, who watches entertainment. I think, you have to be able to pull from different places, like inspiration from different places, and you can often spot trends that are emerging in storytelling, sometimes from fiction, sometimes from scripted, and sort of bringing those into documentaries is where you can find that innovation and that take that makes something feel fresh. So I think a passion for those things. I think, like we said before, someone who's already had a taste for development and knows it's something they want to improve at, learn more about. There's like a passion there, and I think people in development obviously are sometimes quite like restless creatively. They have this desire to come up with ideas. There's like a dynamism, there's an energy that really that development really, if you have it, you really do thrive in development. So I think those people that have a desire to create, have a passion for documentaries, watch widely, and want to not just make stuff, make brilliant documentaries, but they want to create them as well.
I often use the word polymaths because you're finding stories from anywhere and everywhere, and as documentary filmmakers, the subject always is so varied. So having that curiosity and understanding the world and being able to turn your hand to lots of different things, as polymaths do, I think is a good way of actually encapsulating that. So I'm going to now go over to the questions. Thank you very much for everybody who's been adding them to the chat. So if you, as we're going through, if you want to add more in there, if you haven't done that yet, please do. I will invite you, if you want to, you can read the question out, or I can read it out for you. But what we'll do, Hannah, can you kick us off first with a question that we had sent in advance for us? and just
Yeah.
share with
Sorry, I'll keep my camera off just so that my face doesn't pop up out of nowhere. But the question that was sent offline said, if a series producer or executive producer with a lot of development experience in shaping first series from treatment to screen with factual entertainment and docs, along with more recent development experience, be eligible to apply.
Nell, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I don't need. I think you're definitely eligible to apply. I think I would probably question maybe whether you potentially could be too experienced for this particular training scheme. I think if you're at the series producer, the executive producer level, you're a very experienced, established person in the industry if you've got to that point, and you might have done more production, but I think you could find yourself feeling like this might be not quite right for you, I would say.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. G, would you do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question? Or I can ask the question for you?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, my question is about I don't come from a production background. I've been working in distribution for just under 5 years. And I vaguely remember seeing something on the website about having previous credits. So I wondered if that was sort of a hard and fast rule, because I don't have any production credits, but from working in distribution, I've worked with a lot of producers in the development stage to help them shape it for pitching. So I've done a lot of things in terms of pitch decks. I'm really interested in that ideation, but don't have that production experience or formal credits. So I basically wanted to ask, does that render me eligible to apply, or are credits quite an essential thing for this scheme? Thank you.
Thank you. Nell. Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. Yeah, I would definitely encourage you to apply. I think, 5 years in distribution, you have an incredible perspective on the industry, and you've probably watched incredibly widely. And like you say, you're being involved in shaping some of those pitching materials. And if you've got a passion, I think that sounds like a really solid base to work on for this. Yeah. I think the credits thing actually is interesting, isn't it? Because like we said before, a lot of people in development don't get credited for development. So I think maybe with that, I don't know, you tell me, but I think that's an interesting question, isn't it?
No, it is, and it is. And this is a pilot. It's the first time that we've run it, so this is why it's really important to have this discovery webinar. We don't necessarily have all the answers when we come up, coming at this. So people quizzing us, it's really good to know this now, because obviously, we're receiving applications, and these are things that we can discuss internally as well. So thank you very much, G. We've got a question from Umar, which we've actually addressed in the chat. So Umar, you asked a question about deadlines and accessibility. Hannah's, our marketing manager, has added that detail for you. So we're closing on the 3rd of April, and certainly any access needs and anybody else in the room, please get in touch. Sooner you get in touch with us, the sooner that we can support you. And certainly we welcome people who have additional needs. We have different ways of advising you in terms of how you can approach the application process. So thank you very much. That question there. Alex Nicholson, I'll just quickly answer this. So your question is asking, the website says you need 3 to 5 years experience. Am I reading this right? I thought this was a training opportunity. It is a training opportunity. It's about ladders of progression for people already working in the industry. As Nell said right at the beginning, I don't know whether you were there joining us when you joined the call, but getting into development, there's no clear pathway. The formal training isn't there. This is why this scheme has been developed, why this scheme has been brought together with all the different experts and Netflix, is to create a framework where we can formalize what best practice in terms of supporting people to progress in the industry, what that looks like, where are the gaps, where are the things where you will be helpful for you to know to actually approach this and to supercharge your career, basically. So that's where we're looking at.
All right, so ultimately, if I've not been in the industry yet, I probably shouldn't be here.
That's right. If you haven't, the FAQs does say that it's not a new entrant scheme. So
I
yes,
guess I didn't read it correctly. I'm sorry then.
That's okay. That's all right. That's the whole point of the webinar. So thanks for joining us.
All the best for everybody else. Best of luck.
Okay, thank you. Pishdad asking a question about CVs and shortlisting. So just a quick word about how we approach that. We basically assess, just looking at the questions. We take out any information to identify you, so we're removing unconscious bias, and then when we start shortlisting and we're looking for more detail, then we start looking at CVs. But certainly in the first round, in the first phase of the assessment process, everything the assessments are based on your answers. So the things which I say in terms of using the word count, attention to detail, read the question, that's what you need to be doing basically, because that's what we're going to be looking at when in that first phase. Thank you. Okay, so Ez, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, so now I think you were saying that in some of the films and docs you were developing, you were able to be a part of the production, if I understood that right. Is that regularly a thing? If you work in development, can you be part of the production post-commission?
Yeah, I think it happens quite often. I think it's usually it's often, some companies allow it more than other companies is the reality of it. There are some companies that do feel like development people should stay in development, but there are some companies that really see the value in actually having those that have been at the heart of creating and developing that idea smoothly transitioning into the production. It can be a lot easier than just handing it over to someone new. Sometimes you build a relationship. Sometimes you just have a passion for it and you know it so well inside out that it makes complete sense for you to go onto it. And my advice would be, if that's something that you want to do, state your intentions to the people you work with when you're developing something or you're working at the company. Just be honest and say, hey, I really love development and I'm here to do development, but when the right project comes up that you think I could be additive on, then I would love to go on and work on that. And more often than not, I think people would be open and receptive to it.
Okay, great. And are there particular roles? Is it like mainly producer roles, or could it be PD roles?
I think that all depends on your current skill set.
Okay.
It's really hard for me to judge that, I guess, but it all depends on your current skill set and matching that with the skills that are needed on the different roles in that production. So yeah, it's hard to judge, really.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Ez. Thank you. Got a question from Zara Wolf. I'll just read this out. Time's ticking on. Zara's asking about her whether she's eligible, and I have an opinion, but I'll check this with Nell as we're going through. I have 5 years of experience in producing and directing short films in my own production company, one of which is a documentary, and I'm currently developing my first feature-length doc. Am I an eligible candidate?
Can I hear your opinion first, Jan?
I feel that we need people who've actually had experience of working within a production company and knowing what that setup is, because it's different from being an independent filmmaker and short films.
I would feel the same. Yeah, unfortunately, I think that it's a completely different thing developing ideas for yourself or that you're within your company. Often when you go into a company, it's about tuning into what kind of things A, they are known for, and B, that they want to develop, and you finding your way within that structure. And I think that's a different thing entirely. And we really want to find people that have experienced quite a little bit of a taste of something close to that so that they know it's for them.
Thank you. Paula Nimaro asks, can you apply if you only have development experience from shadowing and the majority of your time in TV has been in production and research? Yeah, straightforward, yes. Yeah, that's not a problem at all. Great. James, I have no development or production experience, but I'm an editor of 15 years with 2 feature doc credits. Is this too much of a jump across from one specific area to another? Might I be too underexperienced?
Interesting one. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a jump. I think you'd absolutely be able to do it, be capable of it, and I don't think it's too much of a jump in that sense. I think just think really hard when you're applying that, like development is the thing you want to do. I would just think really hard about that, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think hopefully the questions that we ask you to respond to will tease out and give you an opportunity to say why you want to be doing this. It is a competitive process, so we're looking for those who can make that compelling argument to us to say, I am the right person in the right time, right place. This is what it means to me, basically. Just quickly running through, and then just to say, because we've only got 10 minutes left, the answers, questions that we can't answer, we will be actually taking, we'll be answering them on the website. So for those of you, sorry if you haven't been able, if your question hasn't been answered, that's why it'd be best actually to just put it into the chat. I know we've got some raised hands as well, but please put it in the chat if we are not able to come to it, so that we can address it post session basically. Hannah's answered that question about how many spots. There's 8. There's only 8 spots there. And then okay, Stefan, do you want to answer your question because you're there next?
Thanks. Yeah, I'll keep it brief.
Please.
Yeah, I will do. So, like one of the other previous comments, I have a sort of a mix of experience. First, starting out as like an independent filmmaker, I recently directed a short documentary that aired on Channel 4 as part of the Paralympics. But around 2022 to 23, I was accepted onto the PACT Indie Diversity Scheme to work at Fremantle, a production company in London. And so there I gained really great experience working in development with Naked on the Naked label, development and production. And that was across like a multitude of formats, from Fact 10 to some game shows. And that was lasted around a year. And so I guess I was just wondering if sort of around 2 or so years in the industry, if that would mean I'm eligible to apply, do you reckon? Or
so Stefan, it's really hard to say without looking at your CV where it's all laid out basically, but I think what we're looking for, as Nell has said, is that people who have that experience working within a production company. So if you've only had that period with Naked as part of the Fremantle group, it might not be enough. But apply. We'll have a look at the CV, and obviously, we're looking at how you answer that question as well.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Have a question from Gowrie, who's talking about their experience as an international candidate, as it were. They talk about how they worked, 3 years experience in the Indian unscripted TV industry, but now based in Glasgow. No experience in the UK industry yet. Are they eligible? Now, what do you think, given that international perspective and the way that you guys work? Oh, you're on mute. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to apply. And yeah, I think we will definitely take a look at it. And like you said, Jen, it will depend on the questions, how you answer them, and the rest of your experience. But I'd encourage you to apply, yes.
And then similarly with Judith as well, is asking about eligibility, about they've got 4 years of working in writing and publishing and educational, and then worked in development for feature fiction and feature doc, and dozen short films. Again, Judith, it does depend on what the CV looks like, and if it's been mostly independent, I think that might, well, depend. So you might be working on, depending on where it's housed, what the production company is. We won't know until you give us some more detail, because there's quite a lot of content that you've got there in terms of that experience. Nell, I don't know if you can see what Judith's background is, but that's what I think, that she's got lots of experiences. They're transferable, but whether it's transferable to this part, to this program, I suppose. But yeah. So anyway, Judith, we'll please apply, and it's about the CV and how you answer the questions as with the others. And then okay, another one with Neelam, as Nell had replied for Gowrie. International, that's fine. Please apply. That's not a problem. So I think this sweet spot for us, though, in terms of applications, just to be clear, is 3 to 5 years. And if you're a returner to industry, it's 8. Now, obviously, if you have more than that experience, I hope everybody, after this, if you haven't already, you need to look at the guidelines and the FAQs. The FAQs, the frequently asked questions, are educated guess about what people are going to be asking. And it's based on our experience. And one of the things people need to know is that if you get onto the scheme, what you were paid when you're on placement, and that sort of gives you an idea about the level of experience that people that we're looking for. Because if you're really experienced, it's going to be a really big drop in your salary. So there's that question, and therefore you know, for those who have international experience and somebody with 15 years, you have to explain and make that argument why you should be considered. Our sweet spot is 3 to 5 years and up to 8 if you're returned to industry. Perhaps you've been looking after children, you've been in care, maybe for health reasons, whatever. But you know, if you've got more than that, we're not discounting you, but it's just to say that because this is about ladders of progression, people helping them, you know, to fill in the gaps in their knowledge and help them, you know, progress. And because we have limited resources, that's the sort of area, but that's not to discount other people. So, you know, we just don't know who's going to be applying. So it's you know, as educated, you know, it's a decision that you guys will have to make here in the room if you have more, if you fall outside of that, basically. Okay, we've only got 5 minutes left. So for those of you who still have questions, I'm sorry I haven't been able to answer them, but please do put them in the chat. If you know, you think of questions afterwards and you haven't had a chance to put them in the chat, if you please email training@griersontrust.org, we can add that to the list and we will then post them onto as a news item on the website. You know, it's been great that there have been lots of questions because it made us think about things as well. So so before I say thank you to our you know, our speakers, Debbie and Nell, I'd just like to pull up the Menti again. So Hannah, can you just put in into the chat what the details are? So for those of you who've just joined the call late, Menti is an app online, gives us a chance to ask questions to our audience. You reply anonymously, and the first questions was just about a temperature in terms of who was in the room, who's thinking of applying, etc. But these questions now that I'm just going to ask you, oops, let's share the screen again. There. Oops. So, having listened to the webinar, being participants, and thank you very much for your time. How do you feel about applying now? Do you have more questions? Do you realise that this isn't for me? Are you rearing to go? Are you sitting on the fence? What at this moment do you feel like? Have we done our job, basically? Because it's you know, I think it's really important to you know, to validate that this is the decision that you want to make, i.e. it is the right thing or it isn't the right thing. That's the whole point of the discovery webinar, for you to discover something about the scheme. So yes, it'll be interesting to know what people are thinking. And it's great if we have more questions, please do get in touch. So it's training@griersontrust.org. As I said, it's the first time that we run it, so you know, more questions the better, really. So please do get in touch. Oh, we got the even split there. Oh, might be, it's like head to head there. Okay. Well, that's good that nobody's put off for a start. I'm really pleased about that. But you have questions, etc. That's fine. If there's people that you know who haven't been able to join us this evening who are interested, the webinar will be available on our website tomorrow afternoon. So if you go to the homepage and go to the training section and scroll down to development, the link to the recording will be there. And as I said, please do ask us any questions. Outstanding. Thank you. Excellent. And then lastly, as always, any other comments, anything else that you want to share with us in the final minutes of the call? Debbie and Nell, do you have anything to add as guys are just thinking about how to answer that question? Debbie, any last thoughts? Just a few lines.
Just encourage you to watch as many things as you can between now and the application, and yeah, really looking forward to meeting you and hearing what you've got to say.
Great. And Debbie, what is the documentary that you've most recently watched that you want to share with the group, just to give them an idea of where your sensibilities are?
So, well, I mean, my sensibilities are broad and varied, actually, but this one really stood out for me. I saw it at Copenhagen Doc Fest last year on the big screen. It's just landed on Mubi. It's Grand Theft Hamlet. And for those of you, if you haven't come across it, it's an extraordinary film whereby 2 out-of-work actors put on a performance of Hamlet inside Grand Theft Auto, and it's got everything that I love about a documentary. It's got human journey, it's got a beginning, middle and end, it's got a sort of crazy pursuit, it's got extraordinary human emotion and connection, and it's got that sort of sweet spot of both a universal need, which is to feel connected and purposeful and loved, but also in a very, very unique setting. So yeah, I would really urge you to watch it.
That's great. Thank you, Debbie. Nell.
Yeah, just to say thank you so much for everyone for joining and bringing all your questions and enthusiasm. It was clearly a lot of people who are interested in taking part, and it's a real privilege to be a part of this. So thank you so much.
That's great. Thank you very much, everybody. We really appreciate you being candid and sharing your backgrounds, and also providing us with a rich selection of questions. As I said, please do apply, as the others have intimated. It's really important to us to support people in the industry. Any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. Any access needs, again, flag them up to us. And all the best. Thank you very much.